The crystal vase shattered against the marble floor, and Ria's heart stopped. She watched as 5-year-old Enzo Barone stood on the grand staircase, his small chest heaving with sobs that echoed through the mansion like thunder. His face was red, streaked with tears, and his tiny fists were clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. "I want Mama." The little boy's scream pierced the air. "Where's Mama?" Around her, the other staff members backed away, their faces pale with fear. They'd all heard the stories about what happened when someone upset the boss's son. 3 nannies had already been fired this month. 2 security guards reassigned. The head housekeeper was on thin ice. But Ria couldn't move. She couldn't tear her eyes away from the broken child on those stairs. Then she heard it, the sound that made everyone in the mansion freeze. Footsteps heavy, deliberate, dangerous. Diego Barone emerged from his office, his tall frame casting a shadow across the foyer. His dark eyes swept the scene, taking in the shattered vase, the trembling staff, and his son's tear-stained face. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Ria knew she should stay silent. She was just the maid who'd been hired 3 days ago. She had no business interfering, but as Enzo's sobs grew more desperate, something inside her moved. She took a step forward. What happened next would change everything. "Before we continue, let me ask you something. Have you ever seen a child in so much pain that it broke your heart? Have you ever wanted to help but knew it might cost you everything?" That's exactly where Ria found herself. She was a single woman working 3 jobs just to keep a roof over her head, and this position at the Barone mansion was supposed to be her salvation. The pay was triple what she made anywhere else. It could change her life, but watching that little boy suffer. Sometimes the heart doesn't care about consequences. Ria Johnson had grown up in the south side of Chicago in a neighborhood where you learned early to mind your business and keep your head down. She knew the rules. She knew that men like Diego Barone, powerful, dangerous men, weren't to be crossed. Yet, as she looked at Enzo, all she saw was a child who needed someone to care. Keep watching to discover what Ria did next, and how one simple gesture would not only calm the Mafia boss's son, but capture the attention of the most dangerous man in the city. Will Ria's compassion be her downfall or her salvation? If you're enjoying this story and want to see what happens next, please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us as we continue bringing these stories to life. 3 days earlier, Ria had stood outside the iron gates of the Barone estate, her worn sneakers, a stark contrast to the imported marble driveway that stretched before her. The mansion loomed like something from a movie, all white columns and endless windows that seemed to watch her with cold indifference. She'd almost turned back. The classified ad had been vague. Housekeeper needed. Immediate start. Excellent pay. Discretion required. Only when she'd arrived for the interview did she learn who her potential employer was, Diego Barone. The name alone made people cross the street. But Ria's landlord had given her 1 week to come up with 3 months back rent, and her mother's medication wasn't getting any cheaper. She needed this job no matter who signed her paychecks. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Young, had been blunt during the interview. "Mr. Barone values privacy and efficiency. You clean, you stay invisible, you don't ask questions." His son, Enzo, lost his mother 6 months ago. "The boy has been difficult. Stay out of his way." Ria had nodded, swallowed her questions, and accepted the position. Now, on her 3rd day, she was beginning to understand what difficult meant. She'd been polishing the banister on the 2nd floor when she heard the first crash. Then shouting, a woman's voice strained and exhausted. "Enzo, please, you have to eat something." "No, I want Mama." "Where's Mama?" Ria's hand stilled on the wood. That voice was so small, so broken. "Your father will be very upset if you don't." "I don't care. I hate him. I hate everyone." Another crash. The sound of running feet. A door slamming. The nanny, a stern woman named Olivia, emerged from Enzo's room, her face flushed, her hair disheveled. She stormed past Ria without a word, heading straight for Mr. Barone's office. Ria knew she should return to her work. Mind her business like Mrs. Young had instructed, but her feet carried her toward Enzo's room instead. The door was ajar. Inside, she could see the destruction. Toys scattered across the floor, books torn from shelves, drawings crumpled into balls, and in the center of it all, a little boy sat with his back against his bed, his knees pulled to his chest, his face buried in his arms. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. Riya's heart cracked. She'd grown up without a father. She knew what it felt like to have a hole in your life that nothing could fill. But to lose a mother at 5 years old. She knocked softly. "Hey, sweetie." Enzo's head snapped up. His eyes were dark like his father's, but where Diego's gaze was cold and calculating, Enzo's was full of pain and confusion. His brown hair stuck up in every direction, and his cheeks were splotchy from crying. "Go away," he said, his voice. "You're just going to yell at me, too." Riya sat down on the floor several feet away from him. She didn't try to approach. She just sat, folding her legs beneath her, her dark hands clasped in her lap. "I'm not going to yell," she said softly. "Yelling doesn't help much, does it?" Enzo stared at her suspiciously. "Who are you?" "My name's Riya. I'm new here. I clean the house." "You're going to get in trouble. Papa doesn't like when people come in my room." "Maybe," Riya admitted. "But I heard you were sad, and I thought maybe you could use a friend." "I don't need friends." But his voice wavered. "I need my mama." The words hung in the air heavy and heartbreaking. Riya took a slow breath. "My daddy left when I was little. Different from losing your mama." "I know. But I understand what it's like when someone's gone and you don't know why." Enzo's eyes widened slightly. "Your daddy left. And I was so angry about it. I broke things too. Yelled a lot. Did it make you feel better?" "For a minute," Riya said honestly, "but then I just felt more sad and more alone." Enzo's lower lip trembled. "Everyone keeps telling me Mama's in heaven, that she's watching over me, but I can't see her. I can't hug her. I want to hug her." Riya's throat tightened. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small stone, smooth, dark, with specks of gold that caught the light. Her grandmother had given it to her years ago. "My grandma told me something once," Riya said, holding up the stone. "She said that the people we love don't really leave us. They become part of who we are. See these gold flecks?" She said, "They're like memories. They shine when you remember the good times." Enzo scooted a little closer, his eyes fixed on the stone. "Really? Really? And you know what else? I bet your mama would want you to be happy, to laugh and play and make new memories. That doesn't mean you forget her. It means you keep her alive in here." She touched her chest over her heart. For a long moment, Enzo just stared at her. Then, slowly, he unfolded himself and crawled across the floor. He stopped right in front of her, his small body still trembling slightly. "Can I hold it?" he whispered. "The stone." Riya placed it gently in his palm. "You can keep it if you want." Enzo's fingers closed around the stone, and a single tear rolled down his cheek. Then, without warning, he lunged forward and wrapped his arms around Riya's neck. She froze for a heartbeat. Then, carefully, gently, she hugged him back. "It's okay, baby," she whispered, rocking him slightly. "It's okay to be sad. It's okay to miss her." Enzo cried into her shoulder, deep, drenching sobs that seemed to come from the very core of him. And Riya held him, this little boy who had lost everything, and let him break in her arms. She didn't hear the door open wider. She didn't see Diego Barone standing in the doorway, his hand still on the doorknob, his entire body rigid with shock. She didn't notice how his dark eyes fixed on the scene before him. His son, who hadn't let anyone touch him in weeks, clinging to a woman he'd just met. A woman with deep brown skin and natural curls pulled back in a simple ponytail. A woman whose gentle voice was doing what a dozen nannies, therapists, and specialists couldn't. She was calming his son. Diego's jaw clenched, his hand tightened on the doorknob until his knuckles went white. This woman, this maid, had just broken every protocol in his house. She'd entered his son's room without permission. She'd interacted with Enzo against explicit orders. She'd crossed a line that had gotten others fired on the spot. But as he watched Enzo's sobs slowly quiet, As he saw his son's small fingers clutch the back of Riyadh's uniform, Diego felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope and something dangerous. He should fire her immediately. Instead, he cleared his throat. Can you imagine that moment? The most powerful, feared man in the city, standing in a doorway, watching a stranger comfort his son in a way no one else had been able to. Diego Barone had built an empire on control, on fear, on making sure everyone knew their place and stayed there. But in that moment, control was the last thing on his mind. Riyadh Johnson had just done the impossible. She'd reached his son. She'd broken through walls that had been built brick by brick over 6 months of grief and pain. And now Diego faced a choice. Follow his rules, fire her, and watch his son retreat back into his shell, or break his own protocols and let this woman stay. What would you do? If you were a man who trusted no one, who lived in a world where weakness meant death, would you risk letting someone in? The answer should have been simple. But as Diego stood there watching the gentle way Riaz stroked his son's hair, the protective way she held him, something in his chest shifted. Something he'd thought died 6 months ago, buried alongside his wife. Keep watching to see what Diego decided, and why that decision would change 3 lives forever. Riaz's head snapped up at the sound of the cleared throat. Her arms instinctively tightened around Enzo as her eyes met Diego Barone. He stood in the doorway like a dark prince from a nightmare. All 6 feet 3 inches of him radiating barely contained power. His black suit was immaculate, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass, his eyes the color of espresso and just as bitter. Mr. Barone. Riyadh breathed, her heart hammering.
I'm sorry. Papa.
Enzo lifted his head from Riyadh's shoulder, his face still wet with tears. Don't be mad at her, please. Diego's gaze flickered to his son, and for just a moment Riyadh saw something crack in that impenetrable facade.
Pain, longing.
Love so fierce it was almost violent. Enzo, Diego said, his voice softer than Riyadh expected. Go wash your face. I need to speak with Miss Johnson. Riyadh supplied, carefully releasing Enzo. Riyadh Johnson. Enzo clutched the stone in his hand and looked between them anxiously. You won't fire her, will you, Papa? She was nice to me. She understood. Diego's jaw tightened.
Go, Filio.
Now, the little boy hesitated, then scrambled to his feet and ran to the bathroom, casting one last worried glance over his shoulder. The door clicked shut behind him, and suddenly the room felt very small. Riyadh rose to her feet, smoothing her uniform with trembling hands. Mr. Barone, I know I overstepped. Mrs. Young told me not to interact with your son, but I heard him crying, and you just decided my rules didn't apply to you. His voice was quiet, deadly.
No, sir.
I couldn't walk away from a hurting child. Diego moved into the room with the lethal grace of a predator. He stopped 3 feet from her, and Riyadh had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. This close, she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. Cedar and leather. Do you know what happens to people who disobey me, Miss Johnson? Her mouth went dry. I can imagine.
Can you?
He circled her slowly, and she felt like prey being assessed. In my world, disobedience means disloyalty, and disloyalty means... He let the sentence hang unfinished, terrifying. Riyadh lifted her chin even as fear coursed through her veins. I'm not disloyal, Mr. Barone. I'm just human. That little boy was suffering, and I have a heart. I'm sorry if that's inconvenient for you. The words were out before she could stop them. Bold, reckless, possibly the last word she'd speak as an employed person. Diego stopped directly in front of her. His eyes searched her face, lingering on her full lips, the curve of her cheekbones, the natural coils of her hair that had escaped her ponytail during her embrace with Enzo.
You're afraid of me, he observed.
Yes, but you spoke anyway. Yes. Why? Riyadh took a shaky breath. Because being afraid doesn't change what's right. Your son needed comfort, and I gave it to him. If that costs me my job, then so be it. But I won't apologize for caring about a child. Silence stretched between them, taut as a wire. Riyadh braced herself for dismissal, for cold words, and an escort to the door. Instead, Diego did something unexpected. He smiled. It was a small thing, barely a quirk of his lips, but it transformed his face. For a heartbeat, he looked less like a mafia boss and more like a man, tired, grateful, desperate. You have backbone, he said quietly. That's rare. Is it enough to keep my job? His smile faded. My son hasn't let anyone touch him since his mother died. Not me. Not his nannies. Not the therapists I've hired. He's been destroying everything in his path, screaming, lashing out. I've watched him disappear into his grief, and I've been powerless to stop it. The vulnerability in his voice shocked her. But you, he continued, his eyes boring into hers. You walked in here, and within minutes he was in your arms crying. Yes, but real tears, not rage, not destruction, grief. Mr. Barone. Diego, he interrupted. When we're discussing my son, call me Diego. The intimacy of his first name on her lips felt dangerous. Diego, she said carefully. Enzo is just a little boy who misses his mother. He doesn't need specialists or strict rules. He needs someone to hold him while he cries. Someone to tell him it's okay to hurt. And you think you can be that someone? I think I already was just now. He studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Mrs. Young, Riyadh Johnson is being promoted. She's Enzo's new nanny. Effective immediately, triple her salary. Give her the room next to his. And Yang, his eyes never left Riyadh's face. Anyone who questions this decision answers to me directly. He ended the call and pocketed his phone. Riyadh's mind reeled. Wait, I can't. I'm not qualified to be a nanny. I'm just a housekeeper. You're whatever I say you are. Diego cut her off. And right now, my son needs you more than he needs another professional who will treat him like a problem to be solved. This is crazy. This is my house, my rules. He stepped closer, and she could feel the heat radiating from his body. But understand something, Miss Johnson. You are now responsible for the most precious thing in my world. Enzo's safety, his happiness, his well-being. All of it rests on you. The weight of that responsibility settled on her shoulders like a physical thing. What if I fail? She whispered. You won't. How can you be so sure? Antoria reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he tucked a loose curl behind her ear. His fingers were warm against her skin, and the touch sent electricity down her spine. Because I saw the way you held him, he said softly. Like he mattered. Like his pain mattered. That's not something that can be taught or faked. His hand lingered for a heartbeat too long before he pulled away and stepped back, his professional mask sliding back into place. There are rules, he said, his voice returning to its usual cold authority. You live in this house now. You're on call 24 hours a day. You don't leave the estate without my permission. You don't discuss our family with anyone outside these walls. And you never ever put Enzo in danger. I understand. Do you? Because in my world, Miss Johnson, danger is everywhere. I have enemies who would love nothing more than to hurt my son, which means anyone close to him becomes a target. The implication was clear. By accepting this position, she was putting herself in the crosshairs. I understand, she repeated more firmly this time. Diego nodded slowly. Good. Mrs. Yang will show you to your new room. You start tomorrow morning. Enzo's breakfast is at 7 o'clock. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Miss Johnson, thank you for seeing my son when everyone else saw only a problem. Then he was gone, leaving Riyadh alone in the destroyed room, her heart racing, her life irrevocably changed. She touched her ear where his fingers had been and wondered what she'd just gotten herself into. Let me pause here and ask you something. Have you ever made a decision that scared you, but felt absolutely right? A choice that you knew would change everything, but you couldn't walk away from. That's where Riyadh found herself. She'd gone from being invisible, just another face in Diego Barone's household, to being responsible for his greatest treasure, his son, his whole world. And the way Diego had touched her face, so gentle, so unexpected, that single moment had revealed something neither of them could ignore. Attraction. Dangerous, impossible, completely inappropriate attraction. Because Riyadh wasn't stupid. She knew what that look in his eyes meant when he'd stepped close to her. She'd felt the electricity when his fingers brushed her skin. But Diego Barone wasn't just her employer. He was a mafia boss, a man who lived in a world of violence and secrets, a man who just made her responsible for the one person he loved most in the world. Getting involved with him would be the worst mistake of her life. So, why couldn't she stop thinking about the way he'd smiled at her? The way his voice had softened when he thanked her? Keep watching to discover how Ria's first day as Enzo's nanny unfolds, and why the danger Diego warned her about would arrive much sooner than anyone expected. Ria's new room was 3 times the size of her old apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the estate's gardens. The furniture was elegant but comfortable, and the attached bathroom had heated floors. It was luxury beyond anything she'd ever experienced. But that night, lying in sheets with a thread count higher than her old rent, Ria couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made her jump. Every shadow seemed threatening. She kept thinking about Diego's warning. In my world, danger is everywhere. What kind of life had she just signed up for? At 2:47 a.m., she heard it, a small, frightened cry from the room next door. Ria was out of bed in seconds, pulling on her robe as she rushed into the hallway. She didn't knock on Enzo's door. She pushed it open and found him sitting up in bed, his small body shaking, his eyes wide with terror. "Nightmare?" she asked softly, approaching the bed. Enzo nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Mama was calling me, but I couldn't find her. I kept running and running, but she kept getting farther away." Ria's heart broke. She sat on the edge of his bed and opened her arms. "Come here, baby." He launched himself into her embrace, and she held him close, rocking gently. "It's just a dream," she murmured. "You're safe. I've got you. Can you stay?" His voice was muffled against her shoulder. "Please, I don't want to be alone." Ria glanced at the door, half expecting Diego to appear and tell her she was overstepping again, but the hallway remained empty. "Scoot over," she said. Enzo's face lit up despite his tears. He made room, and Ria climbed under the covers beside him. He immediately curled into her side, his small hand clutching her robe. "Ria?" "Yes, sweetie. My mama used to sing to me when I had bad dreams. Do you know any songs?" Ria thought of her own mother, of the lullabies from her childhood. She began to hum softly, then sing, an old gospel tune her grandmother had taught her. Enzo's breathing slowly evened out. His grip on her robe loosened. Within minutes, he was asleep. Ria stayed awake, watching him in the dim light from his nightlight. This little boy had lost so much. But maybe, just maybe, she could help him find his way back to joy. She didn't know when she fell asleep, but she woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and a feeling of being watched. Diego stood in the doorway, still dressed in last night's clothes, looking like he hadn't slept at all. His eyes were fixed on the bed where she lay beside his son. Ria's breath caught. She started to move to explain, but Diego held up a hand. "Don't wake him," he said quietly. "He hasn't slept through the night in months." He walked closer, his footsteps silent on the plush carpet. When he reached the bed, he looked down at Enzo with an expression so tender it made Ria's chest ache. "He had a nightmare," she whispered. "He asked me to stay." "And you did. Is that? Are you angry?" Diego's gaze shifted to her. "No, ingrateful." He reached down and carefully brushed Enzo's hair back from his forehead. The gesture was so gentle, so full of love that Ria saw him in a completely new light. "He looks like his mother when he sleeps," Diego murmured. Same peaceful expression, like the world can't touch him. What was she like? The question slipped out before Ria could stop it. Diego's jaw tightened. "Isabella was light. Where I'm darkness, she was light. She softened my edges. Made me remember there was more to life than business and power." How did she? Ria trailed off, realizing she was prying ident. His voice went flat, emotionless. "Wrong place, wrong time. A rival family sent a message. She wasn't the target, but she's the one who paid the price." The agony beneath his controlled exterior was palpable. "I'm so sorry," Ria said softly. I've spent 6 months trying to keep Enzo safe, trying to hold him together while falling apart myself. I hired the best professionals money could buy. I moved us to this estate with security systems that would make the Pentagon jealous. I did everything right. But I forgot he doesn't need a fortress. He needs someone to hold him. Someone to sing him lullabies and tell him it's okay to be sad. Diego's dark eyes met hers.
He needs you.
The intensity in his gaze made her pulse quicken. I need you, he added, his voice dropping, to help him, to bring him back from wherever he's gone. It was a perfectly reasonable statement, completely professional. So, why did it feel like a confession? I'll do my best, Ria promised. Diego nodded, starting to turn away, but then he paused.
Ria.
It was the first time he'd used her first name. The sound of it in his deep voice sent shivers down her spine. Yes, thank you for caring about him, for seeing past the tantrums and the destruction to the hurting child underneath. He's easy to care about. Is he the only one? The question hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning. Ria's breath caught. Was he asking what she thought he was asking? Before she could respond, Enzo stirred, his eyes fluttering open. He saw his father standing there and tensed. Papa, are you mad? Diego's expression immediately softened. He crouched beside the bed, bringing himself to eye level with his son.
No, figlio.
I'm not mad. I'm glad Ria was here for you. Enzo looked between them uncertainly. Really? Really? Diego stood, his hand briefly touching the top of Enzo's head.
Get dressed.
I've cleared my schedule for today. I thought we could have breakfast together, all three of us. Enzo's eyes went wide. You're not going to your office. Not today. Today, you're more important. The hope that bloomed on Enzo's face was beautiful to see. Can we have pancakes, Ria? Do you like pancakes? Love them, Ria said, smiling. Then pancakes it is. Diego's gaze lingered on Ria for a moment longer than necessary. I'll have the chef prepare them. 30 minutes. We'll be there, Ria confirmed. After Diego left, Enzo practically bounced on the bed. Papa never takes days off. Never. He must really like you. Ria's cheeks warmed. He's just happy you're feeling better. No, Enzo said with the certainty of a 5-year-old. He likes you. I can tell. He looks at you the same way he used to look at Mama, like you're special. Before Ria could respond to that alarming observation, Enzo scrambled out of bed and ran to his closet. I'm going to wear my favorite shirt, the blue one Mama gave me. Ria sat frozen on the bed, Enzo's words echoing in her head. He looks at you the way he used to look at Mama. No, that wasn't possible. Diego Barone was a powerful, dangerous man who just lost his wife 6 months ago. Whatever Enzo thought he saw, it was just gratitude, relief that his son was improving. It couldn't be anything more, could it? But as Ria prepared for breakfast, she couldn't shake the memory of Diego's intense gaze, the gentle way he'd tucked her hair behind her ear. The question he'd asked, is he the only one? She was in dangerous territory. And the scariest part, she wasn't sure she wanted to leave.
Can you feel it?
That shift in the air, the way everything is changing between Ria and Diego. They're dancing around something neither of them wants to name, something forbidden, something that could destroy them both. Because let's be real, falling for your employer is messy. Falling for a mafia boss, that's suicide. But sometimes the heart doesn't care about logic. Sometimes it doesn't matter that he's dangerous, that his world is violent, that getting close to him could cost her everything. Sometimes you meet someone who sees you, really sees you, and something inside clicks into place. That's what was happening in the quiet moments, in the gentle touches, in the way Diego watched Near with his son. She wasn't just the nanny anymore. She was becoming part of their family. And Diego, he was falling too. Maybe he didn't want to admit it. Maybe he was fighting it with everything he had. But Durial can only last so long. The problem? Love doesn't exist in a vacuum. And in Diego's world, showing weakness meant painting a target on your back. His enemies were watching, waiting, looking for any vulnerability they could exploit. And Riyadh Johnson, with her kind heart and gentle hands, had just become Diego Barone's greatest weakness. Keep watching to discover how one peaceful morning would explode into chaos and why Ria's compassion would put her directly in the line of fire. The breakfast was perfect, too perfect. Enzo laughed at his father's stories, syrup on his chin, his earlier nightmares forgotten. Diego smiled, genuinely smiled, as he watched his son attack a mountain of pancakes, and Ria sat between them, feeling like she'd stepped into someone else's life, a life where she belonged at this table in this mansion with these people. It was a dangerous fantasy. Ria, watch this. Enzo demonstrated his ability to flip a small piece of pancake into the air and catch it in his mouth. He missed, and it landed on his nose, making him giggle. Very impressive, Ria said, laughing. But maybe the normal way before your papa thinks I'm teaching you bad manners. I don't mind, Diego said, his eyes warm. It's good to hear him laugh. His phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor changed. The warmth drained from his face, replaced by cold fury. Excuse me, he said tightly, standing. I need to take this. He walked to the far end of the room, speaking in rapid Italian. Ria couldn't understand the words, but she recognized the tone.
Donge?
Enzo noticed, too. His smile faded, and he pushed his pancakes around his plate. Papa's mad, he said quietly. Not at you, sweetie. He's always mad at someone. Before Ria could respond, Diego returned to the table. He looked at her, and there was something in his eyes that made her stomach drop. Marcus will drive you and Enzo to the park this afternoon. He said there's a playground he used to love. I think it would be good for him to get out of the house. What about you? Enzo asked. I have work, Figio, but I'll be home for dinner. We can watch a movie together. It should have been reassuring, but something felt wrong. Diego's jaw was too tight, his shoulders too tense. Is everything okay? Ria asked. His eyes met hers, and for a moment she saw the truth. Everything was very much not okay. It's fine, he lied smoothly. Just business. But after breakfast, as Ria helped Enzo get ready for the park, Mrs. Young pulled her aside. Be careful today, the older woman said quietly. There's been chatter about you and the boy about how close you've gotten to Mr. Barone. Ice flooded Ria's veins. What kind of chatter? The dangerous kind. Just stay alert. Don't let Enzo out of your sight. And trust Marcus. He's one of Mr. Barone's best men. The park should have been safe. It was broad daylight. Families everywhere. Children laughing on swings and slides. Marcus stayed close, his bulk reassuring, his eyes constantly scanning the area. Enzo ran straight for the jungle gym, his earlier joy returning. Ria followed, watching as he climbed and played, his laughter pure and unguarded. For 30 minutes, everything was perfect. Then Ria felt it, that prickle on the back of her neck, that meant someone was watching. She turned slowly, scanning the park. There, a man in a dark jacket standing too still, his eyes fixed on Enzo. Marcus, she said quietly. He'd already seen the man. His hand moved to his jacket where Ria knew he kept a weapon. Take Enzo to the car, Marcus ordered. Now don't run. Don't panic. Just walk calmly. Ria's heart hammered, but she forced herself to stay calm. Enzo, time to go, sweetie. But we just got here, he protested. I know, but I forgot something at home. We need to go back. Enzo pouted but climbed down from the jungle gym. Ria took his hand, gripping it tightly, and started walking toward the parking lot. Behind her, she heard Marcus speaking into his phone. Code red. We have a tail. Bringing them back now. They were 10 feet from the car when everything went wrong. A black van screeched to a stop in front of them, blocking their path. The side door slid open and 2 men jumped out. Marcus moved like lightning, putting himself between the men and Ria. Run, he shouted. But Ria couldn't run. She stood frozen, her mind racing, her arms wrapped around Enzo, who had started to scream. One of the men raised a gun. Time slowed down. Ria saw the weapon, saw Marcus reaching for his own gun, saw families in the park turning to look. Heard Enzo's terrified cries. And she realized they weren't trying to take Enzo. They were trying to take her. You're the one he cares about. One of the men said, his accent thick. You're the one who will make him bleed. In that moment, Ria understood by caring for Enzo, By getting close to Diego, she'd become exactly what he'd warned her about, a target, a way to hurt him.
Rilla, no.
Enzo clung to her, his small body shaking. She met the man's eyes and made a decision. Let the boy go to Marcus. Take me, but don't hurt him. Near. Marcus's voice was desperate. Do it, she shouted. The men hesitated, then one of them nodded. Give us the boy. With shaking hands, Ria peeled Enzo's arms from around her waist. She crouched down, looking into his terrified eyes. Listen to me, sweetheart. You're going to go with Marcus now. He's going to keep you safe and take you home to your papa. No, I want you to come. I can't. But I need you to be brave, okay? Just like your mama would want you to be. Tears streamed down Enzo's face as Marcus grabbed him, pulling him away. The little boy screamed for her, reaching out, his cries piercing Ria's heart, but she didn't look away. She kept her eyes on him until Marcus had him in the car and was driving away. Then she turned to face the men. I'm ready. One of them grabbed her arm, but before they could force her into the van, shots rang out. The man holding her dropped, blood blooming on his shirt. The second man spun around, raising his weapon, but he fell too. Ria stumbled backward, her legs giving out, and she hit the pavement hard. Her vision swam. Her ears rang from the gunshots. Then someone was lifting her. Strong arms, familiar cologne.
Ria.
Diego's voice was rough, desperate. Look at me. Are you hurt? She focused on his face. His beautiful, terrifying face now twisted with fear and fury. Enzo, she gasped. Is he safe? Marcus has him. He's fine. But you, I'm okay. I'm not hurt. Diego's arms tightened around her. You offered yourself in his place. Of course I did. You could have died, but Enzo wouldn't have. Something broke in Diego's expression. He buried his face in her hair, his body shaking. Dia Ria, when I got the call, when I thought I might lose you, he pulled back, his hands coming up to frame her face, his thumbs stroked her cheeks, wiping away tears she hadn't realized were falling. You're mine now, he said fiercely. Do you understand? Mine to protect, mine to keep safe.
Mean it.
Before she could respond, before she could process the possessiveness in his voice or the intensity in his eyes, he kissed her. It was desperate and claiming and full of fear turned passion. His lips moved against hers like he was trying to prove she was real, alive, safe, and Ria kissed him back, her hands fisting in his jacket, her heart racing for an entirely different reason now. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Diego pressed his forehead to hers. I can't lose you, he whispered. I won't, Diego. I know it's too soon. I know it's complicated, but I'm a selfish man, Ria, and I want you in my life, in Enzo's life, in every part of my world. Your world almost got me killed. Then I'll burn it down before I let anyone hurt you again. He wasn't speaking metaphorically. She could see it in his eyes. He would actually destroy everything he'd built before letting harm come to her. It should have scared her. It probably would have scared any sane woman. But Riyadh just pulled him down for another kiss, choosing danger and passion and this complicated, impossible man, choosing love, even though it terrified her, even though she knew deep down that this was only the beginning of the battle. 6 months later, Riyadh stood in the garden of the Barone estate, watching Enzo chase butterflies. He was laughing, his face lit with pure joy, so different from the broken child she'd met, strong arms wrapped around her waist from behind. Diego rested his chin on her shoulder. Happy, he murmured. Terrified, she admitted. Your enemies still want me dead. We're still figuring out this relationship. Everything is complicated. But she turned in his arms, looking up at the man who changed her life. But yes, I'm happy. He kissed her soft and sweet, a promise of protection and forever.
Ria, Papa.
Enzo ran toward them. Look what I found. He held up a stone with gold flecks, the one she'd given him months ago. It still works, he said, grinning. The memories still shine. And they did. They really did. The end. Thank you all for following this story. If you enjoyed it, please write in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, Subscribe and share this video as your support is important for me to continue creating content.